make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Roar. Roar.
Colonel Ironsides here. 200 years I stood in the gap, fighting those who would harm my country. It was my honor, my sacred duty, so help me God. 9 times they took my life. 9 times I stood back up and made them pay. The freedom fighter and I could handle anything, but someone betrayed me. I was ambushed, made mortal, rendered powerless, and retired. They passed an amendment and made me a civilian before I left the hospital. For 50 years I watched my country change. Watched this work while erasing me from history. The day I quit my job, I powered up and discovered they lied about that too. I'll remind them of freedom. I'll remind them of duty. I'll remind them of their oaths and who they serve. I'll remind them while I'm shoving it down their throats.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
I'm just going to start right muting myself. Anyway, welcome to the rabbit hole. This is the Gen X Files, pop culture from the perspective of those from which it was written. I got some comments over here. Here we go. Can actually get to watch today. All right. Hey, Jared. Good to see you, man. Bro. Let's say what? Bro Matrix. Okay. I'm not sure what language this is. Hey, Adrian. I'm not on the brand account, but you obviously know who this is. Hey, Bunny. Good to see you. Yeah. I know who this is. Okay. All right. Well, good to see you, Adrian. Whatever language that is. Anyway, welcome to the show. Now I usually have this thing done in hours and like almost days in advance most of the time. But this one, I didn't have anything until like I was middle of work and I was like talking about I can't remember what I was listening to, but suddenly it just occurred to me, that we don't talk. I was talking about horror authors the other day, but one of my other favorite types of fiction is like postmodern fantasy, or at least postmodern with fantasy elements. And I brought my favorite authors here tonight to talk about basically what happens when you take something as archaic and as fantasy based as a wizard and you bring them into modern age. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about the Jedi. Now, technically, the Jedi are kind of like wizards or telekinetics uh, who happen to be in the modern age, and they've been thoroughly drugged through the mud. But I don't consider them wizards. I consider them kind of like psychics or telepaths or telekinetics. I don't really consider them wizards. I've heard them called wizards before because, you know, they channel lightning or whatever. Or they can. Please in saludo. Okay. All right. Yeah, another language I don't speak. But anyway, welcome to the show, Adriano. Anyway, so I don't really consider them wizards. And I don't really consider Star Wars like modern day, even though it's like a long, long ago for galaxy far, far away, and it's got technology that's more advanced than our current technology. I don't consider them. That's not what I'm talking about. So we're not going to talk about Jedi's tonight. I agree with you. I don't consider them wizards either. Thank you very much. I have agreement from somebody I respect, Mr. Jared Frost, also known as Frost Comics, also known as JK Trolling on X. Anyway, so tonight I'm going to show you like some authors that I think do this particular genre better than anybody. I'm going to talk about if you're going to create a character wielding magic, particularly wizards in the modern day, you know, how do you do that? How do you accomplish that particular and that particular, I guess, character choice or whatever? Doctor Strange would be a good example of this. Doctor Strange is a wizard by any stretch of the imagination, and he is in a modern day setting. So he'd be basically in comics, I guess. Dr. Fate in over DC side. There are several other ones. The Spaniel there, you okay. All right. I'm just gonna stop highlighting what I don't understand. But anyway, thanks for coming. All right. But anyway, I assume that means Spanish. I have no idea. But anyway, so you know, like Doctor Strange, like 67. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what that is. Nobody does. Anyway, so we're going to talk about we're going to talk about wizards in the modern day setting. Okay. Now, the most I did have some clips lined up, and these clips basically they if you know from my Monday show, I got struck twice. You know, and I was planning on playing some clips tonight, but evidently my download program had a reboot, and I didn't click the option where it downloaded things in MP4, and so when I went to upload them to my my channel tonight, they were in a different format than StreamYards accepts. And so I went to re-download them, but I was at like last minute, had like less than 10 minutes, and I couldn't get them in time. So unfortunately, I won't have clips tonight, which is probably for the good, because let's face it, YouTube these days is not clip friendly in any way, shape, or form. I actually had 2 blocks on my show the other night. It had only like 8 views on YouTube. And but one of them was so one of them was E.T. when I played the theme for E.T. and the other one was Superman. Now, both of them, I guess are WB, maybe Amblin. I think Amblin's sub WB. But then again, I didn't get struck for Harry Potter, which is also WB. And so it's just those particular two that they didn't like. I'm not really sure why. Who knows what the algorithm is these days? But anyway, so if you go back and actually watch the video, if it's not been so suppressed that nobody can see it, you'll see like 2 gaps missing, and that's why. But anyway, so basically tonight I'm going to talk about wizards, modern wizards. But the first start out with the most popular one, and that would be Harry Potter. Harry Potter. Anyway, so Harry Potter. Now, I'll take a wizard to avoid it. Take a wizard to avoid copyright strikes on YouTube. Definitely, yeah. More wizardry than I have. But anyway, so Harry Potter. When we talk about Harry Potter, we are talking about a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. You know, in a modern day setting. Okay. Now, granted, it's a little bit cheating because the way J.K. kind of got around that was she created this parallel world that are running adjacent to one another. One's a wizarding world and one's the regular Muggle world, and so Harry's not, except for like the very beginnings of the books and the very ends of the books. Most of the time, he spends his time like in the wizarding world or the wizard world. Now, so that's kind of how she gets around, you know, having a lot of interaction. Of course, later on as the books go, when the war in the wizard world starts spilling over into the regular Muggle world, you know, things start happening in the Muggle world, you know, like I think a bridge collapse and something like that. But basically, the way she got around that was she created like a parallel world, you know, and that's, but one thing that she did very well is she kind of established limitations kind of very early on. You got the feeling that some people were more powerful than other people, and that technical expertise mattered. But then at the same time, raw power, raw ability also matters. And she found a way to kind of like make it both a technical thing and also an innate thing. You know, Muggles can't be wizards, you know, and you have the mudbloods, you know, that whole entire thing, mixed breed, Muggle wizard blood. They're pure bloods, wizards, you know. It's kind of like microcosm of British society, you know, of you know, upper crust, well-heeled people as opposed to ordinary citizens. You know, you got the kind of that structure there. But one thing, but she kind of like established that there were some people that were going to be more powerful than others, and that the powerful protect the weak, and that innate ability some trumps, like, you know, practice and technical skill. You know, because you had people like Dumbledore, you know, is powerful, has always been powerful from his beginning. And because he's a very, very powerful wizard, he became a very important wizard. But then you have Tom Riddle, who became the bad guy. And Tom Riddle was a very powerful wizard who went to the bad. Okay. And then you have people like Gellert Grindelwald mentioned in. But if you're going to go create a modern wizard, one of the most important things to do is to establish hierarchies. Okay. And if you don't establish a hierarchy, then anybody and everybody can be just as powerful as anybody else. And it takes status out. It takes ability out of it, and it makes you get a muddled mess. If everybody's powerful, then nobody is. And so the lesson to learn from the Harry Potter is hierarchy. Establish a hierarchy in your magical world. Okay, some people are more powerful than other people, and some people will never be more powerful, but through practice can become at least dangerous. And in Hermione's part, we never kind of established that Hermione is very powerful. We established that she's intelligent, that she's scary, because she studies all the time and practices all the time and hones her gift. But she's not necessarily more powerful. And so that is very, if you're going to write magic in your world, make sure that you establish a hierarchy. Okay, that's a very important lesson from Our Lady J.K. Rowling. I would say the first lady of writing magical modern fiction. Now, she's not the last, but she's definitely one of the better ones at it. Now, she basically wrote YA fiction, and because of her YA fiction being so successful, it kind of took supernatural YA fiction in a very dark direction. You walk through a modern YA fiction aisle, and you'll feel like you want to take a shower. And it's all like furry kin, mommy porn, basically. All the covers look like romance novels, and it's just in trying to equal JK. Fiction went off in a really dark direction when it comes to YA fiction, and very little of it matches her Harry Potter. Really, very little of it. Now, I'm sure there's some people out there that are just as good, but they're just buried right now with all the junk that they've shoved into YA. Young adult. YA means young adult. Hey, Fletcher, good to see you, man. And but so that's the best lesson that you can learn from the Harry Potter series. If you're going to write magic into your series or into your book, establish a hierarchy. Isn't it all oriented towards teen girls and 20-something women? Yeah, all of it. All of it. There's no masculinity in YA fiction. There's no masculinity in YA fiction right now. And it's just sad because YA fiction used to have a very strong young man component. Harry Potter being a good example of that. Yes, she was a woman who wrote a male protagonist, but she did it in a way that was accessible to boys. And so you had a whole bunch of boys walking around with a lightning bolt scar on their forehead, and glasses for Halloween, but how that got corrupted, that's a story for a different time. But now, if you're not a girl with a lot of weird sexual proclivities, you're probably not reading YA fiction, modern YA fiction. It's a shame because it's a very important entry level to reading. And their excuse has always been that, boys don't read. I'll have you know that I am a boy. I read. I read a lot. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Now, anyway, it takes a truly extraordinary woman to understand the mind of the young boys and write in a way to appeal to them. And Full Metal Alchemist was written by a woman as well. Here's both talented ladies. Yeah. I've never gotten into Full Metal Alchemist, but I do know that there's a lot of people who love it. I definitely need to check it out one of these days. Okay, so first lesson, J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter. Establish hierarchy in your magical systems. Some people got to be more powerful than others. There's got to be a hierarchy. There's got to be some people not as powerful as others, or you have a muddled mess because if everybody is powerful, then nobody is, and you basically don't have a established universe. You've got a mess. You've got a morass, which you see a lot. And it's like the same people who took medals and ribbons out of field day and made sure everybody got a participation, whether they worked hard or not. The same people that do that are now writing fiction. And they refuse to have winners and losers unless they're white, straight males. And so there you go. Anyway, but a person came along in about the mid-90s and came along with a tall, lanky wizard by the name of Harry Dresden. His name was Jim Butcher. And he wrote the Dresden Files. And the Dresden Files, in its own way, is every bit as impactful as the Harry Potter series. Harry Dresden is a hell of a character, okay? He's basically puts a shingle out in a modern world that doesn't believe that magic exists, but he advertises himself as a wizard. And the magical world who's trying to hide its presence is not very happy about that. And so what you get is a premise, a really amazing premise in that, here's a person who's openly out and says, yeah, I'm a wizard, all right, in a world that doesn't believe it's magic. And yet he is a wizard. And Butcher took the lesson from Harry Potter. He's got a very distinctive hierarchy. Some wizards are more powerful than others, and Harry happens to be a very powerful wizard. But he's not very focused. He's like a raw power wizard in that he doesn't have a lot of subtlety to his art, and he's always lamenting this fact, and he's always trying to work on it. And so you have a guy who has built-in disadvantages. And for the most part, all through most of his books, he gets his butt kicked, like all the time. He's not the most powerful wizard in the room. And so he kind of like, he evens the score by being the most cunning wizard in the room. And so he cheats. He cheats a lot. And he also, he lives, while most of his wizard kin basically live in opulence, he chooses to live in hand to mouth. He drives around in old Volkswagen because his power shorts out any electronics, and so he drives this old Volkswagen. And it gets beat up and gets crushed. It gets crumpled. But he has this magical mechanic who always puts it back to work again. And he has a staff and rod, which he has a hand carve every time. He's got a pentacle around his neck that he got from his mom. Also a very powerful wizard, but she dies long before the story begins. And his father was a stage magician. not a wizard, a ordinary human who's a stage magician. And Harry gets his his moral code from his father, not the wizards. But he is also a child of a very powerful wizard legacy. But what you can learn from Harry, this Harry, not the Harry Potter, but Harry Dresden. What you can learn from Harry Dresden is distinctive characteristics. Okay. Now you find this like Gandalf. What do we know Gandalf as? Most of the time, we knew him as Gandalf the Grey. Why? Because he wore gray robes. He had like a really weird, misshapen hat, and he showed up precisely when he was supposed to, or precisely when he wants to, because that's what wizards do. They're prompt. They're on time, and then you also got other wizards like Radagast the Brown, who happens to be dirty all the time. And but you know who Radagast is from his clothing, his type of magic that he uses. He has some things that you recognize Radagast. And you have like a Saruman, who's like the Saruman the White. White robes, patrician look, very arrogant. Eventually, when he falls, he starts becoming Saruman with the rainbow-colored robes or whatever. Loses his purity. Dang, if you want your kid to be good at magic, name him Harry, eh? Yeah, I know. Harry evidently is a very magical name. There you go. At least if you want a very successful book series, name your protagonist Wizard Harry, evidently. But when it comes to Harry Dresden, he's got a very distinctive car that he drives. He has a foo dog named Mouse, who's a gigantic dog, a magical dog, like a foo dog from Chinese lore. He just happens to pick up his puppy, and it turns out to be a foo dog. And he's a character in the series. He also has a gigantic cat, who a big old orange cat, who he's always talking about that might be part panther, but that seems to be rather of a joke. I forgot the name of the cat. I should have looked that up. But he's got a very distinctive world. He lives in this basement apartment in Chicago, and we know what the apartment looks like, and at some point Jim Butcher kind of like burns his whole entire world to the ground, and his book series kind of fell off a cliff, and he lost a lot of people when he did that, and so he had to kind of like reestablish that later on. And so that's a very valuable lesson. Okay. Sometimes the clothes, the dimnices, or the living quarters, or the castle, or whatever. You see this, Dr. Strange has his brownstone. Very distinctive brownstone. We know what the brownstone looks like. It has that very distinctive mirror, that very distinctive window, But his brownstone is part of his thing. And you got the algamato that he wears around his, in his cape. And you've got his other different things that he kind of has. He has a very distinctive uniform. He has the popped up collar, kind of a little 70s, but really cool. But these distinctive things about him. Harry Potter, you knew about the scar, the glasses, and his owl, Hedwig. About his wand, his phoenix feather wand, which turned out to be fox, feather from fox. And you knew these very distinctive things about Harry Potter. And so kids wanted to dress as Harry Potter, they could. Harry Dresden wears this big old leather overcoat, which he has got spells kind of like drawn onto it, and so it's basically armor for him. He also has a wrist bracelet, which is also like a shield that he uses several times. He gets burned one time because the shield doesn't deflect heat, and somebody uses a flame thrower on him. But his scars, everything about him, but he's very distinctive time and place. If you want to create a wizard that's distinctive, especially in modern wizard, you cannot go wrong by giving him a very distinctive kind of like clothing, distinctive place to live, maybe pets, friends, structure, the friends that he knows, Harry Dresden has a best friend and a woman named Karen, who is her name, Karen, who's happens to be a police detective, and he has a lot of conflicts because she's a police detective and a very good one. But she's also a little small lady, and she's cute, blonde. She doesn't kick people's butt, but she is a judo expert and she is a weapons expert. And she helps him on his adventures, and they become an item later on in the series. But friendship like Harry Potter, Hermione, Ron, and all that. I like how nearly everything Doctor Strange wears is an enchantment or something that makes it mystical. Not to deviate off topic, but you mentioned him earlier. I was like that. Yeah, very much so. Give him a distinctive drip. I'm sorry, that's a modern term, but give him something distinctive that he wears. Give him a distinctive look. Give him a scar. Give him a beard. Give him, like Doctor Strange has strangely enough, Doctor Strange has the same like white temples that Reed Richards does. I don't know why they gave him that, but he's very distinctive. My brother has that, these white temples, right? And but what Doctor Strange is supposed to look like. That's why when we saw him in the movie, when he finally got the cloak on and he kind of like raised up and he's flying in the air, we're like, that's him. Strangely enough, Tish. Yeah. I'll admit it. It was a little, dad joke of me. But that's a very good thing to do. If you're going to do a modern wizard, first of all, have a hierarchy for your magical world, a la Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, and have a very distinctive, like, uniform, clothing, and like place to live, the surrounding things that will make your wizard distinctive. Now, and even even wizards in lore have like their own castle, or they have their own keep, they have their own lair or whatever. So if you're going to do a modern wizard, give him a lair. Give him a place that's distinctively his, place where his spells are, a place where he does his spelling. Harry Dresden has a basement room underneath his apartment that he goes down into. And down there, he has like all these things. I could tell you what's in that room because it's been in so many of the series. And it's very good. Got to hand it to blind prostitutes. LOL. You got to hand it to blind prostitutes. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm sorry. Anyway, got to give your wizard a clock tower hideout. Way too cool. Clock tower hideout. Sure. Why not? The wizard I'm working on, he has a kind of a brown stone, but it's but he disappeared for several years, several decades actually, and he was very famous, very well known, and so while he was gone, while he was missing, there's a museum that they made his house into a museum, and so now his lair is basically the museum dedicated to him. He even has a statue of himself out front. It's a little weird. You have a wizard? Hell yeah. Yeah, the Green Ghost is his name. I'm working on him. You're going to see him one of these days. But anyway, he's set in modern day. Kind of transplanted from the 20s. But anyway, so now you may not have heard this next author very much. A lot of people thought that she was a Laura K. Hamilton clone, so they expected kind of like a, supernatural mommy porn from her, which is what Laura K. eventually degenerated into. But when I first got this series, I was told to try it by somebody who liked Laura K. Hamilton. So she's kind of like Laura K. Hamilton, but early Laura K. Hamilton. Kind of like Laura K. Hamilton without the gratuitous sex scenes. And so I gave her a shot. And her name is Kim Harrison. Now, Kim Harrison, the main character, is Rachel Morgan. Now, Rachel Morgan starts out, you believe she's a witch, but she later on, there's a twist or whatever to it. But in her world, though, she has a church, a big consecrated church, which she lives in. That's her headquarters in a place called the Hollows. And it's a very distinctive world. Now, the lesson I learned from Kim Harrison that you can learn is that if you build the situation of your world, kind of like J.K. Rowling created the wizard world parallel to the regular world, Harry Dresden's wizard world doesn't interact with the main world until things get so drastic that it does. And most people still think magic doesn't exist. And in Jim Butcher's world. But Kim Harrison, her entire world, there was like this gigantic event, this disease that hit humanity. And it diminished humanity to the point where magical creatures suddenly were like not necessarily in the majority, but they were no longer outnumbered enough that they felt like they could come into the light. And so in her world, magical creatures dwell beside humanity. They interact with humanity, and they're involved with humanity. As a matter of fact, vampires are kind of like the mob bosses of this world. And in her world, you have like humans, demons, and supernatural. And so she kind of like walks the line between all of those. But witches kind of have a very distinctive, very unique purpose. And, they don't doesn't make a distinction between wizards and witches in her world. Males are witches as well. But they might as well be wizards. But she has a very distinctive world build in that her magic is, not only does she have a hierarchy for her people or hierarchy for within the world itself, but the world is like the way the magic interacts with the world is very distinctive and very unique in that it really frames what the magic is capable of. Anyway, I forgot how much better read to me you are when it comes to fiction. Very respectable wealth of knowledge you can share discussing stuff like this. Like I said, I read a lot. But Kim Harrison, the best thing about her is that she created this rich, varied, distinctive world in which her characters move, and it's probably even more distinctive than Jim Butcher and J.K. Rowling, and that her whole entire she rewrote her whole entire world to fit her for her story to take place in, and so J.K. Rowling, she didn't really rewrite the world. She just created a new one and made it parallel. Jim Butcher, his world was like, it's like very much like our own, except there's this magical element that is hiding and running around underneath the level, kind of underneath the level. But in her case, she created a whole entire world where, you know, and let it kind of frame what happens in it. And so the world building that you do, but the world building that you do is very important especially if you're going to do something like magic. And when you look at like everybody's trying to emulate Tolkien, but Gandalf had his limits. Gandalf got his butt kicked. Gandalf got killed at the between the first book and the second book. Gandalf lost when he went up against the Balrog. Okay. But something happened that brought him back. But he lost. Okay. So Gandalf had his limitations. Gandalf had, showed his bravery by taking on the Balrog to save everybody, to save the Fellowship, because what the Fellowship was trying to accomplish was more important than his own life. And so he sacrificed himself to hold off the Balrog long enough for them to get loose. And knowing that the Balrog was a elemental and way more powerful than him, but he took it on, and he lost. He lost. The Balrog is immortal, and so he wasn't, but he took it on anyway. So, Harry Potter wasn't the most powerful wizard, but he was the right wizard. As a matter of fact, the point gets made later on that Neville Longbottom also fit the criteria, but because Voldemort chose Harry became the child who lived. He became the important child. But there, towards the end, of course, we find out Neville Longbottom could have been Harry Potter. He's the one that kills the last Horcrux, not Harry Potter. And so, Harry's not really the most powerful wizard. He wasn't even in Dumbledore's class, but Dumbledore sacrificed himself on behalf of Harry. And he also sacrificed himself to put Snape into the Death Eaters. He had Snape kill him, so Snape had his bona fides to get into the Death Eaters. And so, but Dumbledore is more powerful than Harry, but Harry had to be the one to do it because Harry was the fated one, right? But Harry was the most powerful wizard. Harry had his limitations, and Harry literally dies in the end of Harry Potter. Harry's dead for some part of it. He doesn't go to that. He goes to that way station. That's how he has this conversation with Dumbledore, with the actual Dumbledore, is he had to die. Okay. And he had to die to free the Horcrux that was attached to him. And so, yeah, Harry Potter died. Okay. He lost. And he took a Imperius right to the chest, and he died. And Harry Dresden dies at some point. He reached his limitations and he gets assassinated. But oddly enough, later on, it turns out that he paid for his own assassination. because it had to happen at a certain time and place for him to survive, ultimately survive. So he paid for his own assassination. Which, you know, well, how does that work out? It does. But and Kim Harrison's Rachel Morgan, she sacrifices herself at some point. But what I'm saying is, ultimately giving your character limitations, giving themselves challenges that they can't surmount, putting them up against it, giving them the ability to sacrifice for the greater good. If you have a powerful wizard, and I see this mistake made a lot. You see this in Rey Skywalker, okay, in particular. What does she do? Just picks up a lightsaber and defeats Qui-Gon, or whatever his name is, the emo boy. What is his name? I can't remember. I'm so far out of Star Wars at this point. Anyway, she beats the guy who's supposed to be the Darth Vader of the piece. But in single combat, having just picked up a lightsaber. And then later on in the second movie, she defeats Luke Skywalker in armed combat because she's just that amazing, right? And then the third movie, which I've never seen, proudly, she actually goes head to head with the Emperor and basically takes his best shot and turns it back on him. So, and then people wonder why nobody really gives a crap about Rey. It's because she doesn't need us. She doesn't need us to root for her. Hey, what's up, Kaltenberg? Good to see you, man. But she doesn't need us to root for her. She doesn't need us to All right, am I back? Okay. Make sure I got the right mic. Okay. Anyway, I'm back. But not to say that Jedi are wizards. I already said at the beginning, I'm not going to call it wizards. But when I talk about a uber powerful character, and you see this a lot with the girl bosses, right? The girl bosses don't need no man. So they basically defeat everybody they come up against. Captain Marvel just needed to realize that she is awesome sauce and that nobody can touch her when she believes in herself. And so, boom, she just blows everybody away. And that's not compelling. And nobody gives a crap. Nobody does. And when you have a character who has limitations, when you have a character that maybe has the potential of being powerful, has the ability or the cunning or the sneakiness to succeed, even when they're outmatched, that is the best, most compelling character you can have. Establish that magical hierarchy. Because you establish that magical hierarchy where some are more powerful than others, and you've got levels to it, then you can create these compelling stories where your character may not be the most powerful, but may have potential, but is not at the most powerful level, can find a way to succeed. And why is that compelling to people? Because we all feel like we're up against it. We all feel like we're all fighting to succeed. We all feel like we're up against the wall or up against impossible odds. And so when we read about characters, even powerful ones that can use magic, that have to, and when you take these stories, these compelling stories where somebody's more powerful, but still have the same issues as you, it kind of like takes it to another level. And you can tell these stories that are resonant with people. I can't pick up a wand and levitate anybody. I can't Wingardium Leviosa, and raise somebody up. I can't do that. And Harry can, but because Harry's an underdog, because Harry is up against the he who shall not be named. They won't even talk about the guy's name, and he has a hate on for Harry from the time Harry's a little boy all the way up to book 7, and because of that, Harry is he loses people. He goes up against situations he's way in over his head, and he somehow pulls it out, and he's just compelling, right? Same with Jim Butcher, Harry Dresden. Same with Rachel Morgan. The reason why any character, and same with Gandalf. Gandalf's defeat from the Balrog is the only reason why he became Gandalf the White. He took that. They took it away from Saruman, who lost his purity, and gave it to Gandalf, and so Gandalf becomes Gandalf the White. But he could not succeed until after he failed, and so that is the reason why it's so important to establish these limitations, establish this hierarchy, and give your characteristics that are distinctive. Like any wizard, any good wizard's going to have his certain colored robes. Any good wizard's going to have a spell book, his staff, his wand, or whatever, his accoutrement. Any good wizard's going to have these things. And give a distinctive spell, maybe a favorite spell they use over and over again. Pets are always good to include, and the more distinctive characteristics you give your wizard, the more magical they're going to become. Anyway, maybe a levitation spell, but you lift people up with your encouragement, because maybe don't know a levitation spell. Lift people up with encouragement, constructive criticism, and friendship. Well, thank you. The check's in the mail. Anyway. Oh, that's one of the best compliments I've gotten in a while. I'm getting a little verklempt there. But anyway, so if you're going to create a modern day wizard or witch, your preference, but if just take these templates that I showed you, maybe even read some of these books. You cannot go wrong with any of these books. Trust me, they're all good. All of them are good. Most of us read the Harry Dresden series. Get Stormfront today, and you'll thank me later. Or Kim Harrison. Now, Kim Harrison has a very distinctive naming mechanism that she uses for her books. The first one was Dead Witch Walking. The second is The Good, the Bad, the Undead. The third one is Every Which Way But Dead. The fourth one is A Fistful of Charms. Fifth one, For a Few Demons More. The sixth one is The Outlaw Demon Wells. The fifth one is White Witch, Black Curse. Then Black Magic Sanction. Then Pale Demon. And then Bloodwork, which is her graphic novel. But she also has some young adults, Madison Avery series, Once Dead, Twice Shy, Early to Death, Early to Rise. I have not read those, but if she's doing YA, get your kids those, as opposed to the furry porn that they're shoveling down right now. In other words, she loves Clint Eastwood movies, and she kind of like named her series after Clint Eastwood movies. For that reason alone, read this lady. But she writes male characters very well. You know, the thing about female authors, okay, is you can tell a good female writer by the if she writes men the way men are, or she writes men the way that she wished they were. That separates the hacks from the good writers, the female writers. Okay, and I'm not saying that women can't write males, but there's women that can write males very well. But that's the distinction. Check out whether they're writing the men like they wish they were, or how they actually act. And so if you find a female author, that's the dividing line between the good one and the bad one. But anyway, so if you don't shy away from writing magical characters, if you follow these rules that I set out, then you will have a successful magical world, or magical character, or magical universe, or magical story. Just pay attention to those rules of thumb. You can't go wrong. And reading after these people here that I showed you tonight is a good step in the right direction. Trust me. They've given me so much enjoyment. I still listen to audiobooks of the whole Dresden Files. It's coming to a conclusion, either this next book or the book after. And so it's not a wins a winner situation. This is going to end at some point. And it's really coming to a really humongous jaw-dropping end to it. So I highly suggest that you pick up Jim Butcher's Harry Dresden if you haven't read it, and Kim Harrison's Rachel Morgan series. They're top notch. They really are. Anyway, that's been Cooper for Telepathic Bunny Comics. Thank you all for coming and keeping me company tonight. YouTube is really suppressing the crap out of me. I haven't had a video. Excuse me. I haven't had a video top more than 10 views all week. For whatever reason, I think they got really ticked off at me for showing a lot of John Williams in that show Monday. For whatever reason, I triggered the heck out of their algorithm, and they are suppressing the crap out of me right now. So if you get a chance to check me out on YouTube, help me out a little bit, I would appreciate it. I've got shorts. I've got really good shorts this week. I have 3 good shorts this week. All of them got suppressed into oblivion for whatever reason. So if you don't mind stopping by the channel and checking out those shorts, I would appreciate more views. I think they deserve it. And but that's been Cooper for Telepathic Bunny Comics. One other comment. Thanks for the great show. Maybe the last hour of work here fly by. Made the last hour of work here fly by. Okay. Well, I'm glad to help out, my friend. You drive safe on the way home. Of course, I think you work from home. So, but anyway. All right. But thank you all for coming. And we will see you Saturday night. We're going to do a 70th episode special with Cryptids and Conspiracies. And I'm doing a lot of work to make it a special one. We're going to review all the shows that we did since the last compilation show we did. And so there's a bunch of them, shows to go through, and we're going to talk about, our favorite moments, things we learned, things like that. And that's going to be Saturday night, 7:00. We will see you there. It's going to be me and Cruel, and maybe the other 2 if they show up. What's here lately has been definitely not happening. But anyway, we will talk to you later. Follow the White Rabbit. Night, everybody. And